Right, welcome Immortalites to another round of the conversations. Today I have the host of the Learn Cardano podcast, owner of the ADAOZ Stakepool, co-owner of the PBWeb development, organizer here, Brizzy of the Cardano meetup. It's Pete BUI. Pete, do you have much free time?
My God, no, I do not. Well, obviously, with all those titles, you've done your research. That's good.
Yeah, but I go deep.
No, I barely sleep. Like the last few nights, with all the activity happening, like 4 hours a night on average.
Damn.
It's not good, I know. And I listen to the Mere Mortals podcast, and you guys like tracking your sleep and doing all these like crazy metrics with their health and fitness, and that's all gone out the window for me at the moment. So,
yeah, well, I mean, even tracking it doesn't particularly help. Like, one, I don't really track my sleep. I'm just pretty consistent, around 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
But he like tracks his, so you can see all the times when he's not doing it, and it's like all the time, man. He's always like dipping under 4 hours, dipping under 3.
Oh, so, right, crazy.
Yeah, even tracking it doesn't help. You need to
actually have to do it. You have to sleep. Yep.
For sure. So I guess the reason you're so busy is you've been, from what I could tell, like a deep diving as far as anyone has into Cardano and like the ADA system. So people listening to us now, they've heard a bit about cryptocurrencies, but we haven't jumped fully into Cardano. So do you reckon you could give us like a quick explanation of what is Cardano and maybe the stake pools as well?
Yeah, okay. So Cardano's spawned out of what wasn't working in the cryptocurrency space back in 2017, and Charles Hoskinson had a really good vision back then of how it should work. The proof of work mechanism, where you're using computational power to validate the blockchain. So Bitcoin runs on proof of work, Ethereum runs on proof of work, and so do many other blockchains. That wasn't going to scale in time, and things had to evolve. So proof of stake was a concept that was born out of that era, where instead of having computational power to validate the blockchain, instead you would have the validation done by stake pools, and the amount of stake and delegation that people are holding that is pointed to those pools that then become the validators of the network. So instead of machines doing the computational power, we have the owners, the holders of the cryptocurrency validating, not them particularly, but appointing who validates the blockchain, and that in this case it's all the stake pool operators within the network. So I think that's where you wanted to get to. Yeah, so then we have, I think about, at the moment, at this point in time, about 3,000 stake pool operators on the Cardano network as well. So other blockchains are working in a very similar way. So Polkadot works in a similar way. So Solana works in a similar way as well, where they have the validators on the network, and they provide the network of the blockchain itself, as well as the validation of the ledger itself.
Yeah, cool. So I guess a couple of things just for people is one, it is just to ensure the network is doing what it's meant to be doing, i.e. you can trust it. So this transaction goes through, this one goes through. People aren't just magically creating a trillion coins out of nowhere and giving it to themselves. I was actually discussing with my dad last night about the economy and all the money that's been printed in COVID and whatnot, and just trying to really get my head and his head around it as well, because it's so hard to make sense of when you dive into it.
You don't see it, and now because they can print it digitally as well, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros, and it's like astronomical the amount of circulating US currency that is in the hands of people at the moment. I can't remember the stats, but a huge amount of it was just printed last year. It's 30, 40%, whatever it was. I can't remember the stats.
Double digits, easily.
Yeah, absolutely huge.
Yeah, for sure. And we won't dive into the differences between proof of work and proof of stake. There's philosophical things related to that. But I read somewhere that you actually, so you own a stake pool here in Australia. How many are in Australia, do you know?
Well, I did do the slides at the Brisbane Cardano Summit, and I swear there were like 30 or 40 different stake pool operators that are based in Australia.
Yeah, so
could be more.
We're doing pretty well considering how many people we have here in terms of population and whatnot. I read somewhere you actually had a team of 5 on yours doing that. So what do those people actually do? What is involved with running a stake pool?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting start, because I'll probably go back to myself trying to start the stake pool and then why those other people came in. So I started it back in January 2020 when I was just researching what cryptocurrencies I should get back into. So the markets were going back up, and I was thinking, yeah, I want to get back into crypto. This is cool, the whole COVID thing, and what I would do now. So researching all the different blockchains, just looking at Polkadot, Solana, and the setup process and the costs for setting up a stake pool to be a validator were just high and astronomical. Cardano's barrier entry, really quick, really easy. So if you have some sort of level of technical knowledge to set up servers, you're in. You can pretty much set it up. There's guides, tutorials, you just follow it step by step and you're pretty much up and running. Yeah,
and you just need like a Raspberry Pi in terms of actual physical stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's like the lowest computing power that you could probably use. And they might be a little bit struggling at the moment, but there's ways to get around it. But like they're fairly cheap cloud services. I think the cheapest I'm paying is about $40 a month.
Okay.
But then you build up like a cluster. So you need like a couple of relays that sit in front of the network, and then a block producer, the actual part of the setup that produces and mints the block. So there's a little bit of a setup. And I'll probably send you a diagram to like.
I'll chuck it on the screen.
Yep, cool. So in setting that up, doing it myself, I thought, great, I could probably get a whole bunch of delegates coming in, because you need those delegates to actually mint the blocks. You need a certain threshold every 5 days to be allocated the blocks to mint, and that way you can earn more ADA. What I realized at that point was I only had 1,000 ADA, and to get to 1.2 million ADA is quite a feat of marketing. So I teamed up with
money.
or money. So back in January, February, it was still fairly cheap. It was like 50 cents per ADA or something, or 70 cents. So I was buying up nice and slow. Then suddenly that huge bull run came in, and it was just buying it was out of the question. So I wasn't going to exactly buy $1 million worth of ADA. So I had to team up with other people. So the other guys that came on board, I've known in the cryptocurrency space for a really long time, since like 2017, and they got me into cryptocurrency, and getting a better understanding of what Bitcoin and Ethereum was back then. So I pulled them in. I said, "Hey guys, let's get back into this shit and let's start a stake pool together." So they all contributed a little bit of ADA, and we managed to get up to I think maybe 30k worth of ADA. Still not enough.
Yeah,
still not enough. But those guys were building trading bots, and I was just talking to one a little bit earlier, and they built trading bots to algorithmically trade their cryptocurrency holdings on exchanges. So they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And one of the other guys was a neo moderator, so he moderated the community for a long time. So in terms of having someone to help build the community, he was definitely a good contact to have. But of course, then suddenly we managed to somehow pull in a very large holder of ADA that wanted to join the pool. And hey presto, we managed to break over the million mark in how much ADA was staked in our pool.
Yep.
Thanks to him. So we brought him in as essentially an investor in the pool. That filled out the team to 5. And now we're finally consistently minting blocks because we have enough delegated to our pool.
For sure. So I was researching a bit of this, and I was looking at when I first started getting into Cardano and buying ADA, and I was like, okay, what's the general rules of thumb someone should look at when delegating? Because I guess the essence for me is just comparing it to dividends. You hold ADA, and you can receive dividends from this by participating in the network. You can go for steps beyond doing Project Catalyst and whatnot. We'll talk about that soon. But I was trying to understand, who should you go with? There's 3,000 pools to choose from, or whatever it is. How can I do this? And the general recommendations were like, look for one in sort of the top 100. It's got to have this much of a pledge and all these sorts of other little things. And then I was thinking, okay, but how do the small people who are just starting off actually make money from or get ADA from what they're doing? So when you're below 1 million, do you receive any? Or you're just grinding away trying to...
You're grinding.
Yeah.
It's a hard
So it's like an
grind.
investment in a certain sense. What would then incentivize someone to be with you, I guess, if you're below that? So does everyone just have to wait until...
Yeah, you do.
You get like a big person coming in?
Well, it really depends, and there's certain ways to actually mint and actually grow your pool from that really small point, and why someone would want to actually delegate to a really small pool. So a lot of the small pools have different missions or something else that they're doing, which is or offering something else, one of those marketing competitive edges compared to one of the big pools. So if you're just a regular investor or a speculator in ADA and you just want your 5% returns, then coming into the space, you'd just be looking, especially if you're holding a small amount. So if you're holding something under 1,000, you'd just be looking at what pool returns regular ADA rewards every single epoch, every 5 days. And that's probably all you really care about. So that's the very first initial point. So and that was my first initial point. So I started staking in October 2020, and I just looked for the first pool that I could delegate to that seemed good. Saturation was like 90. I was like, seems all right. That sounds like a good number.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people delegating.
Like these numbers make no sense to you when you're first doing it.
So and it really didn't. And so I just went, delegate to that. That will do. And fingers crossed. Check back in a month's time. Yeah, made a little bit ADA. Great. That's fantastic. But that's when I started to dive a little bit deeper to try and understand the metrics to optimize my returns. So as an initial investor, that's all you care about. You want to get more ADA. So I started looking at the other pools, found a slightly smaller one, delegated to that one, see what I got. Check back a little while later, didn't get anything. What's going on? And that is because it was a small pool that wasn't that didn't have enough delegation to it to mint on a regular basis. And what happens with those pools is that to make up for those periods of time where they're not producing rewards for the delegates, their reward rate will actually increase. So over a year, you're supposed to get that 5% return. So if you're delegating to a small pool that doesn't get the blocks minted regularly, you'll see these spikes and troughs. So you see these troughs where there are no block rewards coming, and then suddenly at the end of the month, you might get like a 17 or 22% return. And then suddenly, the stats go up, your ADA returns, and it kind of balances out over a year. Yeah. So that's how the small pools operate. And a lot of those small pools actually have their missions as well. So if I wanted to actually support their mission, maybe they're doing charity work, maybe they're doing cancer research. I don't know. There's so many different missions that these small stake pools have. And delegating to them, they'll take a small percentage fee off the rewards. Yep. And then from that,
random dog. Yeah.
And then from that, they'll invest those rewards into their missions, and you'll eventually get your rewards as well. And like I said, it averages out over a year.
What is that level where you're inconsistent and not getting blocks? What level of ADA is that roughly at? So
to consistently mint blocks every single epoch, you need around the 3 million mark.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're sitting around 1.2 million, you might get a block. So the percentage chance is high enough that you may mint a block. But because there's that peak and troughs, it's unpredictable. So if you have 1 million at it, you might be delegated and assigned 4 blocks that epoch. And then the next 4 epochs, you get none. So it all balances out. So if you want consistent rewards as a stake pool operator, you need to hit that threshold around the 3 million, 3.5 million ADA.
Gotcha. In the future, do you see more people being able to get into it? So like you're saying you need to have some cloud server knowledge. I don't. I have no coding knowledge either. Is there ways for people who don't have that to... potentially in the future, like there'll be services where they could be like, all right, I'll do this, and then I'm actually the one owning it, or are they always sort of relegated to being just delegators in a way?
Well, first off, being a delegator is a huge help to the network. It's like, if you're delegating your ADA, you're securing the network by, appointing who actually controls and produces the ADA for the ecosystem. So delegation is a really important fact. But in terms of you being a stake pool operator and owning your own pool, there are stake pool operator as a services.
Yeah.
Yep. So you can Google that. You can find some really good reputable people in the ecosystem. So you pay them a certain fee every single month. So it might be the server costs and then a service fee. And from last look, I think it was around like $600 a month or something like that for a service fee. They'll set up all your infrastructure for you. They'll look after it. All you need to do is provide the pledge the amount of ADA that's locked on the server, and then you can have your own stake pool operating and going from there. And actually, a lot of people in the ecosystem at the moment, like some of the top 100 pools, actually have that set up. They don't know, they have no idea how to actually operate and manage their pools. They've just outsourced it to a third party. They were in early or something or whatever, and they just have a large amount of ADA, and they've just have that particular setup.
Yeah, I guess I asked that is because when you're first getting into, so just for your knowledge, like I only really started looking at crypto in the start of this yearish. I'd bought some stuff back in like 2017, just as like a hedge against whatever, just left it there for ages, did nothing, sold it at some point, and then of course straight after that
skyrockets. Everyone's story.
But like one of the things I'm really enjoying about this moment in time is it seems you can do lots of things. Like what really got me into it was I could use it with podcasting and like the combination of podcasting and crypto. We'll talk about that soon as well, but it was just that ability to actually do stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, now is sort of, I guess the promises from back in 2017 are come true in a way. It's like I can start using it on my phone, I can start sending it to people, start doing it in real life things. Like if
it's taken a while.
If I really want to now, I can be the one buying the pizza with Bitcoin. It's possible through an app that I have, and I can do other things with that as well. Which is why I ask about the stake pool operatings, because I probably won't do it myself, but I want to know that the capability is there as well, because so many things just seem hidden away or like untouchable now. Like I'm never going to be able to be a Bitcoin miner really now, because it's gone too far. You need ASIC machines. You need to be next to a volcano and all that sort of stuff. So I was just curious as to how friendly it is for newcomers to come in and be able to actually do stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, barrier to entry in the Cardano ecosystem is very, very low. So you don't need much technical knowledge to be able to do a lot of the stuff in the ecosystem. And you don't need a lot of money. Because I was considering setting up an ETH mining farm earlier this year as well. But, being in an apartment, you need quite a few graphic cards. They're quite expensive. And it's just not worth it. It just doesn't work out mathematically here in Australia, especially with the high electricity costs, the heat here in Queensland as well. I could not imagine mining in my apartment with
trying to keep it cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah,
it's just too hard.
That's funny. Yeah, because it seems like every step along the way, no matter how much the crypto coin or the blockchain tries to decentralize, there's other factors that come in. So if it's if it's not the protocol itself, it's the physical hard drives being created, and then someone creates a monopoly on that and whatnot. So it always seems to be like a fight somewhere along the system of someone trying to grab it all, I guess, in essence.
Or NVIDIA being, the major producer of these graphic cards for, Ethereum mining or Ergo, whatever it is. And then the chip shortages as well, and then all sorts of things. And I'm just wondering if they will actually lower the price of the video cards after, the chip supply issues are sorted. Just keep on milking it. Just keep milking it up there. But buy some shares in NVIDIA. That's the easiest way to go about it.
Well, I mean, I always go back to the De Beers Diamond Company example of just like the monopoly they've got. And held on to it for so many years. It's crazy. So that's for the diamond market. If you're ever interested in that, type that in and be prepared to get your mind blown about just how ridiculous it is.
I think I listened to a podcast where you mentioned it.
It was the last one. Just on the stake pools as well. So what other things would you sort of need to be a good stake pool operator? So we talked about equipment, but knowledge, skills, even just personal qualities.
Okay. From actually just creating it, like if you're doing it on your own, you need those technical skills. So if you need the server administration skills, you need to be able to code.
And we didn't get back to what the other people in your 5-man team actually do.
We'll go back to that as well. I'll bring them in. So you need the coding abilities. You need to be able to the way that we've set it up is what's called server as code. So you'd set up your server infrastructure in a particular way, but then script that entire process so that if anything happens, you can run those scripts and then rebuild that entire environment. So that's what Jaff, one of our team members, is really good at that stuff. So he initiated that kind of thought process for us, whereas we were just setting up servers and just going, yeah, that should do.
Yeah, yeah.
So optimizing and really fine tuning that process to make the server setup that much better. Jeff also recommended security setups for us as well, so he's quite knowledgeable in that space. He's quite a senior engineer in the WordPress ecosystem, so his knowledge is quite handy. So it's quite good to leverage off him. He's helped quite a lot in that regards with our team. But yeah, you need to have those type of skills to actually manage it yourself. If you're doing it yourself and you want to do it properly and you get to a really large pool size where you're minting 30, 40 blocks per epoch, that means you're constantly minting. And if you miss like a 6-hour window, your rewards will go down and your delegates will suffer as well. So those things do happen. And they're instances where very large YouTubers with like millions of subscribers set up their pools. Their infrastructure people have no idea what they're doing, and they completely balls up the entire system, and their delegates didn't get rewards for an entire month. So that does happen. So you do need those technical skills. Besides the technical skills of setting all that up, you need to actually know what and how Cardano works, and then lastly, marketing. And that's what I didn't realize. It's all marketing now. So now you have that infrastructure set up. You talk to another pool operator, their infrastructure is pretty much the same. They're doing all those really good practices, security-wise, technical setup. You look at all of them, they're probably just the same. But the thing that makes it stand out is the marketing. So why the hell would you delegate to this pool? It's because they're a part of the ecosystem. They share knowledge, whatever it is, educate, which is what we do, and then market themselves. So if you're not known, you're not going to get any delegation. You got to be out there marketing.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess even just the capability to handle stress, because if you've got so many people sort of relying on you and there's expectations, and that's constant as well. It's like it doesn't end now. The epochs are every 5 days, so it's every 5 days there's a new chance for you to screw up.
There's so many aspects that I never thought of. Like the marketing is one thing, then the customer service. Like people contact you out of the blue and say, "Hey, I'm delegating to you, but I haven't received any rewards yet. What's going on? Did you stuff up the server?" Go, "No, hang on."
Yeah.
Then you give them all these tutorials and you do the whole customer support experience, because we've got like a ticketing system on our website. So people go through that and actually engage with us as you would like if you're engaging with like a huge telecommunications company. Like the whole support has to be there.
For sure. And I mean, I was looking before. You have what social media do you have? You've got the Telegram, Discord, the site. I saw you had an Instagram. I think you ditched that. Maybe a Facebook as well. What's it like trying to manage all those as well?
It's not too bad. So like I've concentrated on the main areas.
2 Twitters as
well. 3 actually. 3 now. Yeah, three. So I concentrate on the areas that bring back the most impact. So the Facebook page didn't really have much of an impact, and to get I'll backtrack a little bit. Our company PBWeb development, we've been doing this stuff since 2006. So online marketing engagement and stuff. It's just a core fundamental of what we do for our clients. So understanding how social media works, how online marketing works, was just a nice little there you go, easy. But Facebook doesn't really work. Facebook pages don't work unless you're funneling money through it, or if your entire engagement system is on there, and it's not. It's all on Twitter at the moment. So we didn't concentrate on the Facebook page. We concentrated on the Facebook group, which provided more support and engagement that way. So it was much easier on that. The Instagram page was a very like push marketing as well, very much like the Facebook pages. And if you pay money, then great, you get some engagement out of there. If you're constantly creating nice, cool, pretty graphics, which I do not have time for, then it could do well as well. But Twitter, you can just put out a little tweet, engage with the community, actually build a connection with people as well on there, like a really broad global connection. And it works really well. So Twitter's definitely the space that works for us. And then Discord to capture people into our ecosystem, into our community, and actually talk on a regular basis, so we can build that community and build projects out of there, which is the crazy thing that's been happening.
Yeah, for sure. I saw that, but didn't really get into it. What are you working on over there?
So a couple of the pool, the podcast fans just wanted to talk more about NFTs. So that's one of them. So from that just spawned let's start an NFT project, and one guy went, let's just do spaceships. They're cool.
Yeah.
So why not? So one guy just started doing 3D renders. Someone else came in. Oh yeah, I can do 3D renders as well. So a little team just formed, and an idea and concept came out of that, where we are building a online browser-based spaceships kind of game where you can play to earn. You mine resources in the game to build more spaceships. Spaceship designs will come out. You can buy them or construct them in the game, and then finally battle other factions as the storyline and game develops. So the idea is that you start off around Earth and you start mining to the asteroid belt and building your empire, I guess. But then later epochs, maybe in a year's time, alien species finds the solar system.
It's getting deep.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and then from that, you need the storyline as well.
For sure.
There's whole that thing. So it will eventually evolve to that point.
Yeah, that's super cool. Just on NFTs, like I've been looking at them recently, and it's doing my head in. And I think I'm actually going to just not look at them anymore. Like I think it brings out the worst side of me, which is sort of like the quick, I want money now sort of thing. I find myself, when I'm getting in that mindset, it's just not good for me. Like I'd rather just investing. I've always say this, like I feel money should usually be pretty boring. Like if I'm doing money stuff right, it's usually boring as hell, and then money is just good for use in other parts of my life. It helps. It accentuates the things I really care about in life rather than the money itself. And I've noticed with NFTs, I'm like the money. It's always getting into it.
Well, so you should probably get into projects that you actually like.
That's the thing. Like Dean from the ADA community here, he was the first NFT I bought, and that was cool because I know him, and it was like, oh, there's this thing, it's this random thing. Like I have no idea if it's good or bad. Like I didn't spend any time in the community. I was just like, I know this guy. I'll spend 45 ADA.
Was that the Gantbot one?
Gantbot, yeah. So that was cool, and I want to do more. So like your thing, I'd probably do that just for the hell of it, like with no expectation of it increasing in value or anything like that. More just for the fun aspect of it. Yeah. Oh, I've got this cool thing. I can battle my spaceship and kill other people's spaceships or whatever. Like that.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah,
that would be more fun. I don't know. When I was looking in the Discord, you seem to be really getting into the everything, like every project, because you're spending so much time in the Cardano community. How do you deal with all these new things coming out constantly and staying on top of that? What goes through your mind?
I don't know.
Or are you suited for that? Is that your type of personality? You enjoy new things.
Maybe I am. It's I absorb a huge. I guess I absorb a huge amount of information, and because I'm constantly in it, it doesn't seem very overwhelming. So the whole DeFi space, for example, started back in March. So learning about all the projects and all the information that's coming in is, it's been a 6-month journey. It doesn't like come all at once and really overwhelm me. And I actually didn't understand DeFi in March. Because I've never participated in the whole DeFi space on the Ethereum blockchain. I never got into Curve, Finance, MakerDAO, or anything like that. So it's just a whole learning journey from that period to now to actually understand why Cardano is on the precipice of being huge, because it's just about to break into that space. But in terms of the overwhelming amount of information, I just roll with it. It just comes in. Yeah, it's I think a lot of people can't handle Twitter because of that constant flow of information. But I'm fine with it.
Yeah, okay.
I've got 3 accounts, so it's totally fine.
I'm semi in that. I think I only just started using Twitter this year. I actually had no social media from 2013 through 2019.
Good on you.
So
good on you.
Yeah, I went a good period without. And even now, if I wasn't doing the podcast, I'd probably stop most of them Like I'd probably jump off Instagram. I'd barely use Facebook anymore. It's just to organize Instagram posts, to be honest. So yeah, for me, but I mean that's just me anyway. So like I don't watch much news. Like I don't follow news type podcasts or anything. For me, it's more what would you call it when it's like evergreen content? So it's something I could maybe go back to in 10 years time and be like, oh yeah, that was cool, rather than this thing happened yesterday, blah, blah, blah.
Now, here now.
Yeah. That being said, you know, I've jumped into Hosky because that's just absolutely ridiculous.
The Hosky tokens.
Yeah.
You kind of have to. It's there will be some sort of value to it one day. So it's just grab some.
Ludicrous. You can't say that. Zero forever.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. But as soon as people start listing it on a DEX, it's going to be trading for a certain price. Oracles will pull up that data, and hey presto, it's listed on CoinMarketCap.
And anything that's doing like, what was it, millions of transactions.
I know.
It's going to be.
It's in the hands of a lot of people, and they've done it in a really smart way. So it's getting out there to the community, and that the whole distribution thing is. Have you been following SundaySwap and MinSwap?
Yeah, not MinSwap. SundaySwap. I'm in that and just looking around and whatnot. Yeah.
So with all of the DEXs, they need their tokens distributed out to as many people as possible, so that when they go and list their tokens on the exchange, they're providing extra liquidity, because they have to provide a trading pair. They have to provide their MinSwap tokens and ADA, or SundaySwap tokens and ADA as well, or now Hosky tokens and ADA. So that's what they're trying to do. If they can get it into as many hands of as many people as possible, that means more liquidity be available on the exchanges for those trading pairs. So the Hosky guys are doing an amazing job, because they know that people will eventually go back to an exchange and try and cash it in somehow, or get other people in the ecosystem in and cash out on them. And that's what's happening. So the MinSwap are doing their fair ISO thing and distributing it via, I think, 25 or 30 so pools. And that's what SundaySwap are doing as well. Pure marketing, pure getting it into the hands of people.
For sure. Yeah, Juan and I are going to do a podcast about the value in like meme coins and shit coins and what's actually in there, because I haven't spent too much time thinking about it, but if something's like Doge is worth, I can't remember how much it is, 30 billion now. Wow. You know, there's something in there. It's not just crap.
I was actually talking to someone the other week. Her name's Ali. She's a community member in the Gold Coast, and she does Forex trading. She's done it for a huge portion of her life. And she was looking into the meme coins. She has a psychology background.
Yeah.
And she was talking about who is behind these meme coins. Like Doge, we know because it was produced as a experiment, a joke coin, back in, I can't remember the year, like 2013 or whatever it was.
Early,
yeah. But the Shiba Inu that came out of it, like, who is the team behind that? They're all anonymous. And from her research, she thinks it's from India. A lot of the push is from India. A lot of the holders are from India itself. It came about with like a Vitalik sending all that Shiba Inu to donate back to India.
Yeah.
Because of the COVID or whatever it was. So a lot of people in India are behind it because they're seeing like value. It's made a lot of people not so much freer, but like it has an opportunity for them to redistribute wealth from the really wealthy in the world to them, and suddenly have like new opportunities that they would have never had before. They've suddenly have a little bit of Shiba Inu that they're just holding on to because they heard that Vitalik was donating it to everyone in India, or the charities there. So they were buying then, and now it's gone skyrocketing, and they're seeing really good value from it. So it's in their best interest to see Shiba Inu keep growing the way it is, so that they can be free financially from that rise.
Yeah. Well, it's like the stories you tell yourself. It's just, you just got to make the story strong enough that it beats out other people's stories, and that's there's not that much like pure strict logic when it comes down to even just your daily life. Like I do handstands all the time. There's no inherent reason I should be doing them. Like they don't bring anything to me other than they're really fun and I enjoy doing it. So
how are your wrists?
Okay, I take care of them. I do a lot of stretching and whatnot. I'm pretty careful. And I think I've just never really had joint injuries before.
Okay,
so I'm pretty good for the moment. But
you're lucky.
I'm still young, so
I did 7 or 8 years gymnastics.
Oh, okay.
And anytime I do a handstand now, my wrists just complain. So yeah, it's those days are pretty much over.
Sure. What
Yeah.
what sort of level did you get to with
7
handstanding?
open. So hands. I don't know.
Like, how long could you hold a handstand for, I guess?
Long enough, like 3-4 minutes, like quite
Okay,
easily.
that's ridiculous.
Handstands are bare basics, but I compete up to level 7 open, but didn't get to compete nationally. So,
yeah, okay. Yeah. We'll come back to that. That's
Right.
fascinating, man. I love crazy stuff like that.
Yep.
I wanted to ask about Australia in regards to crypto, because I hear competing things with regards to how I don't know, just as a whole we're going here, and then maybe we can even dive into Brisbane. But I hear alternating views like it's draconian, i.e. we get double taxed on the Cardano, so those distributions that we get coming in, if I then try and sell them, so one, it's counted as income, and then two, if I sell them back into fiat, then it's CGT, so capital gains. Things like the backdoor encryption, I think, that you were talking about on yours, where everyone needed to have if you're doing anything cryptographically, it was like you needed, there was putting some regulation on that or something, like you needed to have a way for the government to get back in. Maybe this was somewhere else that I heard that. And then there was a crypto, right now actually there's a crypto class action because they banned on Facebook advertising cryptos for a while, and now there's like a class action lawsuit against them because it was unfair, I guess, et cetera, et cetera.
I can understand their point of view, but yeah, the regulation space is. I think it can improve. I think I mentioned it, or was talking to someone on our podcast, Yao, that was explaining the current regulation landscape and the Senate inquiry that's happening at the moment. So I'm really hoping it changes in a way that benefits people and makes a lot more sense. Because we in the industry are suffering, I think, from a lot of the regulations that are in place at the moment, especially around the double taxing of crypto assets and the way that they're classed. It just makes it very difficult for other people to actually want to get in. Like if you jump in now and you have a huge gain, you sell off, you have to pay that massive amount of capital gains tax. It really puts people off. So it's why would you bother in the first place? You buy something else and write off the profits off that, like a property or something, and just sit for 10 years. But you can have the same mindset, I guess. With
so
crypto.
is it different in Australia compared to other countries in the world? Do you think are we getting? Is it worse here in essence?
Honestly, I haven't really looked at how some of the other countries have done their tax setup or how it works there. But I know in the United States or whatever, they have a very similar setup to us. So they do get taxed, double taxed as well. It's just I don't think it's just classed as property though. So their amount that they're taxed when they sell is a little bit different. Whereas we get taxed quite highly because it's classed as a property. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then the alternative side of that is man, I'm seeing tons of things going on here. Obviously, just let alone in Brisbane, you've got your stake pool, the Rocket Pool guys for Ethereum, who do Ethereum staking. They're in Brisbane. There's the Wallet of Satoshi, I think, was created here as well. So that was the thing that helped kicked off Bitcoin Beach and in El Salvador and things like that. So it's I don't know. I see alternating views saying Australia's the worst, blah blah blah, and then I look around, I'm like, man, there's so many crazy things going on here. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Innovation wise, I think it's great. You're right. The Rocket Pool boys that are, I've forgotten his name. I think it was Dean, up in Brisbane.
There's Darren.
Sorry, with the D.
Langer,
yeah, that might be it.
He's not the owner though. I'll look it up quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, that idea that came out in I think 2018 of because they knew that Ethereum was going to eventually move to proof of stake, and to get there was quite a mission. So to set up a way where you weren't locked into your cryptocurrency so you don't have your ETH locked into an ETH node was quite smart. And a very good way of doing it, but it's evolved over time and it's changed into something a lot more complex.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got into the ICO back in 2018 and so glad I did. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, David was the founder, Darren's the general manager, and then
they're all,
a bunch of other people.
That's why I get confused. They're all starts with the letter D.
Yeah, too many D's going on.
yeah. But yeah, huge amount of innovation. And you know, if you look at the Blockchain Alliance in Australia, there's so many companies that have signed up to it, and it's not just companies that are looking and using it for in the financial sector, like fintech. It's also other companies that are using blockchain for identity, record keeping, and supply chain tracking as well. So not looking at it from a financial point of view, but purely using the blockchain as a efficiency mechanism so that they can make their business operations better than what they are if they were to build it in a regular database and have it in a data center. Having it on the blockchain instead makes their business more profitable. So it's smart moves that way.
For sure. I think I heard on one of your podcasts the adoption in Australia was quite high of crypto, or was it crypto in general?
Yeah, it's crypto in general. So it's either people that were holding cryptocurrency or have exposure to it, like they've bought it in the past, but maybe not now. I think it's somewhere around the 25% mark.
Yeah.
It was a survey that was done on finder.com, and they produced the stats out of it. I really wish I remember what they were, but somewhere around the 25%.
Yeah, I'll chuck it on the screen. Yeah, I found that fascinating, and it's real fun just seeing it get more into everyday life as well. Mm-hmm. So, you know, for me, it was the other week, we're at a place called Hashtag Burgers or Hashtag something in West End, and on a table on the other side, we just had this guy complaining about how we lost 1.65 Bitcoin, a wallet with that. And we're just like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah. You hear a lot of those stories.
Yeah. Are you seeing changes, I guess, just in maybe even just Cardano since you've started really jumping into it in this last year?
Changes as in like more adoption, or
adoption, just anything interesting you've noticed in like your day-to-day life, I guess. And
well, you know, now that I walk around with this like Cardano t-shirt, I get someone like, wait, I recognize that logo. I've got Cardano, so yeah, it's. I think if you're exposing yourself like this, then people do react, and you do see the the adoption happening. So you see more people like getting excited when they see it. But when you're sitting at a cafe in Surfers and there's a bunch of old women next to you talking about Bitcoin, then you know the adoption's happening.
Yeah.
They weren't talking about it in a good way. They were talking about Elon Musk and how Bitcoin's a scam. But they're talking about it.
Yeah, interesting.
Not that they were buying it, but I was going to jump in and talk to them about it and try and convince them why it was a good thing. But
there's a time and place for all sorts of things like that. Yeah,
not when they're having breakfast at a cafe. Yes.
What I guess we didn't talk in particular about why you really chose Cardano as well. So you'd had some exposure to like the whole industry.
Yeah.
What made you really focus on it enough to be wearing a shirt, for example, of it around?
Well, I think my story is pretty much the same as many others. Like you come into a cryptocurrency because of the gains. Like you're looking to invest in something, you're looking to earn more cryptocurrency of some sort. My ethos for investing or investing in cryptocurrencies is not to throw all my fiat currency into it, but to find ways to earn it. So either from mining, staking, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's the same for me.
Yeah.
That and holding it long term. Those are the only two things I'm good at.
yeah, exactly. Like the whole trading thing, even with the trade bot, it's like, it's okay. It's you got tax implications and all these other headaches that you need to worry about. So for me, it's like earning it, paying the tax on it, and then just holding it for as long as possible. So looking at all the chains, it led me to Cardano. Like it's the easiest barrier to entry, like I was talking before. You could set up a stake pool, you can earn some extra ADA rewards from it. Great, fantastic. But then after deep diving into it and realizing what it's capable of, and everything from Project Catalyst, being able to submit a project to the Cardano ecosystem, having it voted on, and then being funded, like that's amazing. Like I know decentralized autonomous organizations exist, and this thing happens in other ecosystems as well, but this is so fast paced. It happens every quarter that projects are innovating and money is being spent and growing every single quarter to huge amounts of money that these projects are actually making a difference and doing some really cool things. And that's the other thing. It's the type of projects that are coming out of it, and the type of focus that Cardano has is focusing on actually trying to change issues in the world, whether it's little things from identity to RealFi, like building sustainable housing in Africa, to connecting the unbanked. Like you hear that term all the time. It's like banking the unbanked, connecting the unconnected within Africa, so that you can onboard all these new people that have never had a bank account before, or haven't been on the internet before, and then getting them on board and using Cardano as their everyday transaction platform.
Yeah.
So that's what that vision brought me and made me stay in Cardano and went, yeah, this is the blockchain that I need to be in.
For sure. Yeah. Similar for me. I think it's the, I like being able to use them personally. And so, yeah, me being able to delegate and know that that's helping the system, me being able to go to Project Catalyst and, yeah, know that I'm playing a part no matter how small it is. With my, X amount of ADA. It feels good. Like, it feels good that I'm actually doing something outside of just money, which it gets boring, to be honest. Like, it just gets boring after a while. If you're always chasing the next money thing, it's like, okay, what are you actually going to start doing with that money, though?
Yep.
Hoarding it and nothing, yeah.
And you're right there with the usability, being able to actually use the platform. Like Solana's good for usability because the fees are so cheap and it was easy to get into as well. So Solana would have been a good option. But compared to Ethereum, to participate in DeFi, you got to fork out first your initial stake that you want to put into a liquidity pool in Ethereum DeFi protocol. And then the fees that you have to pay, which probably be just as much as what you're trying to put in, especially if you're just experimenting. So anyone that's just getting into this space now just can't afford it.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's tough. But, if you got in like years ago in 2015, you're laughing.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's a big problem with Ethereum.
Yeah. Me personally, like, it's same thing. One, he was smart and bought a couple of V friends back, and it's real funny because we were learning at the same time. Really, like, we both through the podcast really both were starting to pique interest. He was the first one who told me about NFTs and things like that, and you can see us sort of diverging in a way where he's going more down like the Ethereum route, NFTs and stuff like that, and then I'm going more, I suppose, like Cardano and hodling more, I guess, like really just trying to earn it from it as well. It's fun sort of seeing those our different paths going in different ways as well, and looking at that and the reasons behind it, which is more personality than anything else, to be honest.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
You were actually talking about the like open source communities and stuff, and so this gets us into the podcasting realm. You have done tons of open source stuff before. Like, what were those, and maybe even just your previous experience with podcasting? Which is...
So, I used to do everything that I'm doing now that you see me do, like the meetups, the podcast and all that. I did years ago, like I think it was 2015. I started a podcast in the Joomla community.
Yeah.
So Joomla's a open source content management system, and I use that and WordPress in our business to build solutions for our clients. So back in 2005, there was a big rivalry between all these open source systems, and I chose Joomla as our preferred platform. Built a business out of it, did quite well, became quite involved in the community, doing presentations, organizing conferences every single year, meetups every month, so exactly what we're doing now in the Cardano ecosystem. But then I think I took it very seriously in 2015, maybe. Started the podcast then, the Joomla Beat podcast. It's still online, but not many listens anymore, especially if you're not trying to promote it. But that opened the door to so many opportunities. I got to fly to Germany, in Frankfurt, for one of the world conferences there, and I got onboarded into the ecosystem, the community leadership team for the Joomla project. Then I went to, where else? New York, Mexico, Bangalore, and Cancun. Yeah. All part of that little journey of being in the Joomla ecosystem and doing exactly what I'm doing for Cardano at the moment, like providing interviews, educational content, tutorials, and just trying to drive adoption for the content management system. And then from that, it led to leads for our business. So we're seen as a pioneer, not pioneer, but like a thought leader within the Joomla community. So people would come to us for those type of websites and those type of solutions.
Yeah.
So that's how and what we were involved in.
Yeah,
in
and
terms of open
showing
source.
just you're invested in it, I suppose. Showing
Yeah,
that you care and you're doing all these things.
Yeah.
That's crazy because, I'd never heard of it before researching you. I was like, Joomla, no idea what that thing is.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
Well, obviously it's big enough to have conferences and
Precisely. But that's the point of adoption that you want to get. So like back in 2005, there were well-known brands, and we were all fighting each other for market share back then. So there was Joomla, Drupal, and WordPress were the main ones back then. They still are, really. But then over the last 10, 13 years, those names kind of blend out, and you look at a website, you can't tell what it's built in. And that's a point of adoption that you kind of need cryptocurrencies to get to at the moment, where you look at something, you play with something, and you wouldn't have a clue how it's built or what tech it's built on. And people shouldn't care either. So that's a point where it is now. So you might be using a particular website like Officeworks or the High Court of Australia and not know what it's built on, but actually parts of it are built on Joomla. So you wouldn't even know, and you shouldn't need to know, and you should never know.
Yeah. Same with podcasting in a way. It's really only this last year that I've learned. Oh, this is how an RSS works. Oh, this is how they use the aggregators, and this is how a podcasting app will do this thing, and this is how they serve up stuff, and this is all the stuff that's in the back end that no one knows about and shouldn't know about, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You as a podcaster, you need to know every single thing. So if you stuff up your RSS feed or it gets taken away, suddenly your podcast disappear everywhere.
In a way, yes. In another way, no. I would say if you love podcasting, you'll eventually go down that route. So I was doing it for probably a year and a half before I started really looking at it, and then switching hosts to go to ones where I can do better things and cooler new things. But once again, that's pretty established now. You don't need to know what an RSS feed is if you're just an average person on the street. You can go to Anchor or whatnot and sign up, and you'll do it just like that. It's like put audio in, write something here, you're done. You're sweet. Again,
I think that's an evolution of the adoption and making that user experience as easy as possible. So it's podcasting's gone a long way.
Yeah,
I'm
for
still
sure.
using old systems, I think.
Yeah. There's new stuff coming. I suppose so. We'll jump to it now. Have you seen any merging of podcasting and blockchain stuff just on your end? So you've done both.
Not myself. Only what you've shown me.
Yeah.
So through the actual podcast apps where you can, I can't remember what it's called, and I haven't used it yet, but being able to engage and tip users while listening to the particular podcast. So I haven't gone down that path yet.
Yeah.
Just don't have the bandwidth.
For sure. It's that's the curious thing, which for me is like it was fun to find this little community, because I think it's pretty much the only one doing it. It's being pioneered by the guy who Adam Curry, who invented podcasting in a way, like the first guy who put audio in an RSS feed. So it sort of makes sense. Like he's the dude who created it, so he's sort of the one driving the next changes in it.
Took him a while.
Yeah, busy dude. I think for him it was like he was really only seeing what the Lightning Network on Bitcoin could do, and that's pretty new. Like that's only been around and usable for a year and a bit, or 2 years maybe. So sometimes you just have to wait for things to catch up and before you can really get into them. It was funny going through your stuff, because I was suspicious. I was like, "How Pete's really good at this? Like your first episodes and whatnot. You normally when you go onto the first podcast episodes, they're pretty shocking." But it was like, I think he might have done this before, or something related to this, because it's.
I think the Joomla podcast I had about 103. Did you look into it?
I think it was more than that, 107 maybe.
Yeah, been doing it for a very long time, but the thing that I started this year was the YouTube stuff, and that was shocking. Don't look at my old YouTube stuff.
Yeah. YouTube's a different beast. It's very different from podcasting, for sure. I would say it's more one, you can't just necessarily change it over. Like you can't just make a video and it'll be a good podcast episode, and vice versa. Like you have to. I spend way more time doing the videos and things for YouTube than I do particularly for the audio.
It's worth it though. It's the views and stuff that you get from a YouTube video should be higher than an audio podcast. So if you're doing stuff in the right way, I guess you haven't looked into YouTube analytics and search marketing around it yet.
I know enough to know like the searchability is better. You know, thumbnails are much more better. The more evergreen stuff, so you can do evergreen audio episodes and they'll still get lost in your back catalog, whereas you can have a YouTube video that'll just keep going and people find it, and it's another way for people to find you. I use, the way I sort of think of it, I use YouTube more as a way of people really searching us and finding us. I can't say I'm particularly in love with the actual video content and creation per se. Like, it's not the most important thing. Like, if I had enough people listening for the audio, I probably would more focus on making the audio really, really good. But you know, it's a mix as well. Like, I enjoy coming out here and being outside and doing the videos. It is fun. So yeah, it's a mix for me. It's a mix.
Okay, interesting. From what you're saying as well, it sounds like you're not leveraging your website for your evergreen content.
Yeah, once again, like I said, we're not the best of marketers for M1. It's just not what interests us.
Yeah, I can tell. But so my Joomla podcast, I started and ran for almost 3 years, and I just went, nah, that's enough. And I stopped it because it was not profitable. Even though it led to clients, our focus was shifting to another content management system. So it wasn't worth our time doing that podcast. So it's now when I started this new one, monetization, marketing were key so that I could keep the podcast running for longer than a year. Yeah. So if it's not successful after a year, I would probably cut back a huge amount and just do one audio podcast or one video a week compared to what I'm doing right now. So sustainability of that was crucial from day one, and that's what I learned from doing my very first podcast. Otherwise, you won't be... I absolutely love doing it, and I want to keep doing it because I absolutely love it. But if it's not sustainable and it's taking up all my time and it's coming to the detriment of my business, then why am I still doing it?
Yeah.
You know? So if you could do that as well and actually make an income out of it rather than more than just the tipping through the podcast app, then you know that'll be an ideal situation, I think.
Yeah, I'm actually going down the opposite route. I don't think I ever want to advertise or put a paywall. Like, for me, my general philosophy is I want anyone, anytime, any place to be able to access it. So hence another reason for being on YouTube. It's just another place where I can put it. Adam Curry's really interesting because he's got the value for value model, which really ties into why he's connected Bitcoin and the cryptos up. Well, just Bitcoin, but who knows what people will do in the future, is because he's essentially created a model where he doesn't ever need to do advertising and he just relies on people listening. Now, he's got a huge listenership, like over 1 million people tuning in. A certain percentage of them, I think he says like 3 to 4% will voluntarily send money because he asked them to. It's like, hey, do you want to support the show? You can do it via this way. And then integrates that into the show as well, so it makes it different. Yeah, I really like that. I actually have a real dislike of advertising just in general. So I think that's just from YouTube, from TV. Really, it's just really put me off. The amount of ads I've seen in my life, I just went, no, I can't deal with this.
No one watches free-to-air TV anymore. So just to get your stance and understand, you're not a fan of YouTube ads, so the ads that appear there, and what about audio ads that appear on Spotify? Okay,
neither.
Cool.
Yeah, right. That's just a personal preference of me. I know other people do it differently and whatnot, and that's cool. It's fun being able to do whatever you want. Like, if you want to do it that way, that's fine. If you want to do it another way, that's totally fine, or a mix of the two, or however it is. So for me, that's just a personal preference. It's not like, to be a podcaster you need to do this, or
I did start down that path as well. Like, everything was unmonetized in terms of advertising, and I wanted to keep it as clean as possible, but in terms of our listenership and viewership numbers, made absolutely no difference. So in terms of the amount of effort that you put into a video, just put up an ad, 5-second ad that they can skip in the first place, and that would do.
Well, I think,
I think even just having ads for some people lends credibility to it. So it's almost like putting ads in is a good thing because it shows that, you know, your show is worthy enough of having, like, people are paying to be putting stuff into it. So yeah, there's arguments for that as well, how that can make it better in a way. Or
the ones I don't like are the ones where it's a paid sponsored thing in the actual show yourself, where the speaker's actually talking about it and say, hey, these guys paid for this and I'm going to shill it from them because they gave me a lot of money. Those type of ads I really dislike. It really brings down, I think, the honesty of the presenter and the show as well. So it's
almost like you need some distance between the two.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. It's always, people always have varied opinions on advertising and whatnot. Have you had any challenges with podcasting? And I guess, you know, how much do you really do enjoy it? Is it something you would do like in the future for another thing that you come across?
Audio podcasts I absolutely love. It's my main consumption of learning. So all my learning that I do is through long drives to Brisbane between here and the Gold Coast, and just listening to The Economist, the Wall Street Journal, and just absorbing information from that. So it's absolutely love it. Absolutely love the medium. It's the only thing that you can really connect with someone on a long period of time. Like YouTube, it's a like 5-minute viewership. Like, you look at the stats on our YouTube channel, people watching for maybe 2-3 minutes, skipping, and then they drop off after like 5 minutes at the most. Whereas the audio podcast, look at the stats, that people listening for like an hour to an entire episode, and they're really engaged, and you know they are because you can see the stats. So I absolutely love that medium where you can actually connect and have someone listen in on your conversation with someone like we are right now. So it's definitely something I love. Anything else that I jump into, any other business that I do, I'll definitely do a podcast for.
Yeah. What have you learned from podcasting about creating communities and connecting with people? As a, you know, what have been like some of the takeaways that you've learned from that?
Oh, geez, I learned the hard way. Like, I never really created a community around anything I did, especially in the Joomla days. I just put out the thing and, you know, hopefully someone listens to it and maybe writes a comment on the website. That was essentially it. A couple of things blew up here and there, and I got like massive threads going up on the website. But I never really tried to engage a community because of the podcast. I always had different ways to engage with the community, such as meetups or the conferences themselves. And they never really interconnected. It was never like a meetup because of the podcast.
Oh, okay. So you wouldn't get podcast listeners necessarily coming to those?
No.
No. Okay, that's interesting.
No. There's always that disconnect. And I think here in Australia, because it's a very niche content management system, and Cardano's essentially a very niche cryptocurrency as well, and there was never enough people that were interested in it that I could say, hey, I'm doing a meetup via the podcast. I'm doing a meetup here. I'm going on tour. Come around and we'll talk, whatever. So it was never anything like that. It was always like, hey, there's a Joomla conference happening. I just happen to be a podcaster. And they go, oh, yeah, cool, great. Haven't heard of your podcast before. So it was always like that. So I never actually grew a community out of the podcasts.
Gotcha. How would you necessarily try and do that? Do you prefer online stuff in person? Like, if you were starting a new podcast now, what would be your steps, I guess, if you were trying to create a community around it?
It really depends on the niche. Again, if it's something like the Cardano, for example, what I'm doing with Cardano at the moment, it's all online communities. It's because we're so diverse. It's a global community. Majority of the people are in the US or in Europe. You need to be online. So that's just how it is. It's just what you got to do. The podcasters and the YouTubers over in the States and the EU, they're lucky. They can do these kind of things to make connections in person. But, you know, that's why I run this meetup here, so I can actually meet people, talk to them, educate them in different ways, and maybe build the community around it, but maybe not. If it does, great. If it doesn't, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that. Like, you could create a community for one thing, have the podcast for it, but not have those worlds really that merge that much. They could be entirely separate.
Yeah. Well, if you come to the meetup tonight here in Brisbane and you ask someone, have you heard about the Pete's podcast. Like, they'll probably say no.
Yeah. Okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's jump into a couple of just like personal stuff, if you don't mind. The gymnastics,
Sure.
man. What?
Yeah.
I love gymnastics. I think it's super cool. I wouldn't do it myself because the couple of times I've tried it,
Yep.
I don't like moving in the air. Like, essentially, like I
Cool.
just find the danger level of that super, super high. Every time I've done like trampolining or the high bars, can't remember what the two bars together and stuff like.
Yep.
It's always like, man, this is going to end badly.
Yeah, I've seen many accidents. It does end badly. Yeah, trust me.
Yeah. So what ages were you doing gymnastics
Oh,
from?
I think I can't remember when I started, but I would have finished in year 12, year 11 or year 12. So worked backwards from there. So I probably started around 10 or 11 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. And in particular with handstanding, how much would you train handstands to get up to like a 3 or 4 minute handstand?
It's your warm up.
Yeah.
So I used to train 3 to 4 times a week for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
So after school or on Saturday, it was like the entire morning. And handstands were just part of your warm up. It's just what you did.
That's crazy. So you wouldn't particularly practice them. They would just be.
It's a part of what you had to do every session. So
Yeah.
it's not like let's do a handstand session today, and then you might touch on it next week. It's every single time you train.
Gotcha.
So like you might be doing planks or handstands against the wall or something like that, just to build up core strength.
Yeah.
So you're building up your lats, your shoulders, whatever it might be. So it's just all part of the training, because it also coincides with other parts and other apparatus that you're on. So if you're on the parallel bars, you would swing up into a handstand position. So you're doing handstands there. Or you might be doing on the high bar and you're doing a kip up to a handstand. So you're doing handstands there. So if you're working on different apparatus, you will touch on a handstand at some point in time. Or even if you're on the mushroom doing circles or whatever, the positions that you're in, you're going through the prone position and front support, side support, whatever it is, and that works your way up into a handstand as well. So
Gotcha.
Handstands are just a core component of gymnastics. In whatever apparatus you're on.
That's super cool, man. Like I'm basically probably around the 2 minute level now is where I'm at.
I've lost a lot of it though.
Yeah, you would if you're not doing that every day. I met a guy actually whilst in Argentina who was from England. He was still relatively young. I think it was maybe like 22. And he had done gymnastics for ages, and he'd done that one. Have you ever seen it? It's where it's like 4 people, and so they just form like a big human pyramid type thing. So it's related to handstanding, but not particularly as well. It's and gymnastics, but they'll basically have like four dudes. There's like one real big tall guy who's probably like 180 to 2 meters tall, 2 sort of like middle-ish levels, and then one really tiny guy, and then they'll basically form a pyramid where they'll go up. So it'll be like one guy holding the legs of another one while sort of like leaning back, another guy standing on his shoulders, and then the top tiny dude does like a handstand, one arm on the second to top guy's head. It's crazy, man.
Crazy circus stuff.
Yeah, it seemed more gymnastic in a way rather than circus. Like the people, and he said like he did gymnastics all the time, and this was just like a little slide variation of it or something.
Yeah.
I just found it fascinating. It was crazy. And yeah, he was saying he did it for 21 years, took a year off, and he could still do a lot of stuff, but it started to go pretty quick as well, and just not training it.
And you kind of lose confidence in yourself. So I don't think I've done any backflips or backsalts in maybe 15 or so years, and I've spent like a year working my way up to it. Just one, to be able to do a tuck jump high enough so I can do a backsalt, and then just building up the confidence again. But I need someone to be able to spot me, someone that knows what they're doing in terms of that spotting, just to flip me over. And I'm sure once I do it, I'll be fine again. Yeah. But it's just that period of time that you don't touch it or you don't get exposed to it. It's like you lose that confidence as well.
For sure. So you're trying to do that now, are you, or that was?
I've taken a break from the gym and all that, unfortunately, just because of time schedules. But eventually, I'll get back into it and I'll get my back salts back. Handsprings I got back pretty quick, but back salts, That would take a little bit more time. I think.
What's a back salt? What particularly
standing
is that?
tuck jump backwards. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'll do like a simple floor routine, like run up, round off, back flip, back salt.
Yeah. How you finding that on your wrists and and joints and whatnot?
It hurts. That's why I don't want to actually do flips or handsprings or anything like that, because I don't need to use my hands and my wrists. But if I can just do a back salt, that's fine. That's cool.
Yeah, that's one of the other reasons I'm sticking with handstands is there's not that dynamic movement of your hands hitting the ground.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I'm always placing them. Like I start every handstand. I start the same, 2 hands on the ground, kick up,
Yep.
and then trying to get into some one arm stuff now, which is different, but it's still I'm still not. It's like a constant pressure. It's not a hitting banging sort of one.
Have you started doing handstand walks, like walking up levels and stuff?
I don't really know. I really dislike. I think I'm just really like isometrics. So
Yep.
in general, so no, I can't even handstand walk. Like I can do a pretty good handstand. I can get into one arm fingertip support and stuff, but
Yep.
I can't walk more than a meter.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
yeah.
it's just a skill I'm not that interested in.
Yep.
In trying to get.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, that's funny. You have pretty strong ties with the Vietnam and Vietnamese community as well, because I listened to one where you had some ADA people there.
Yeah.
Is that because you were born in Australia, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you go to Vietnam often. You got family and stuff there.
Parents were both born there. They didn't meet there. They met here in Australia.
Yeah.
So they left because of the war. Totally different stories, escaping refugee stories. They met in Adelaide, and because of the war, I exist.
Yeah.
If the war didn't happen, they would not have met because they're in different parts of Vietnam, which I find absolutely mind-boggling now that I look back at it. But I actually never... I barely speak Vietnamese.
Oh,
so
okay,
my
really?
Vietnamese is actually really poor.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think my level of Vietnamese is maybe a 4th or 5th grader.
Yeah.
So I speak at home with my grandmother. That's about it. But my parents always went down the path of, you're in Australia. They gave me an English name as opposed to a Vietnamese name, and you're going to hang around with Australians so that you can adapt to this new environment. Kind of happy they did that because it kind of really excelled me. So I went to a school where I was one of 2 Vietnamese people in the entire school, whereas other people grew up with big Vietnamese communities and half the school was maybe Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So there was a really big contrast where I grew up with Italian and Greeks. So completely different environments there. But I really appreciate that because it gave me exposure to a lot of different people that other people wouldn't have met. So it's very different. So I grew up not caring for my heritage, my culture, and I didn't go back to visit Vietnam at all until I think I was 2016
Okay.
or 17. So that was my first trip to Vietnam, and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah.
that's really that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I really love languages and culture and whatnot. So they just didn't talk Vietnamese at home?
Very little.
Yeah.
So I speak to them at home in English.
Yeah,
and I still do. So it's just the way it is.
Yeah, wow. Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
'Cause I know I would say probably the majority of people that I meet who have come from different countries, and most of those would be Latino because I speak Spanish, and most of them will still speak it at home, maybe combine in a little bit of English,
Yeah.
but it's still predominantly
Yeah.
my kid's Colombian. They're gonna know about their culture and whatnot. So I find it kind of fascinating. Well, and their reasons was just so you could acclimatize more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that would actually been a pretty big sacrifice on their part. 'Cause that
Yeah.
would
Yeah, it was.
That would be really hard
Yeah.
to learn English themselves. Like I know how hard it is learning another language as an adult. Like it's grinding and painstaking. It doesn't come quick.
Yeah, I think my mother learned a little bit of English in high school, so she was a little bit well off. So she got a little bit of education there, and I don't think my father did, but they learnt everything here. They got foster families to look after them and learn English from. So it was good for them.
Yeah.
And they were still fairly young, so they were in like their teens, like late teens when they were over here.
Yeah, that's not.
So
it's still hard, but not as
hard. They're still at an age where they can adapt and learn. So if they were any older, I think a lot of issues would have come in then. So the stress of not being able to learn the language and adapt to a new country and all sorts of other things that I've seen happen to other people and other immigrants. But they were still young. They were still wanting to work hard, and they did. They worked very hard.
For sure. Do you do much coding as well? Because that I'm wondering. Like I see the big difference between languages, and like it's real funny when I can see how certain things mean different things. So like I always go back to in Spanish, esposo is like wife or husband. But esposar, it means to handcuff. So it's like literally like the verb form of that is handcuffs of husband and wife, which I just find absolutely it's beautiful.
That sounds right? Yeah.
Yeah. They nailed it. So I love finding things like that in different languages.
Yeah.
Do you get any of that in coding? Because I'm sort of thinking of learning how to code as well. Just starting on like
little
JavaScript
weird things like that.
Python.
No, I don't think so. Like codes.
Does your
very
brain
black and white?
Do you think differently when you're deep into coding? I guess,
know what you mean. So when I'm thinking Vietnamese, I do think differently because the sentence structure and everything changes. In code wise, I don't know if my mind switches. It's all very logic based, and you sit back, you try and solve problems and stuff. So it's probably more a mathematical mind that picks up and flips in. So I don't really know. I don't know if my mind actually flips or see anything like that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I'll have to try and find out for myself.
Yeah. Let me know how you go.
Yeah, for sure. You traveled a lot. Where were a bunch of the like favorite moments, favorite places? Where would you go if you could travel in the near future?
Southeast Asia was definitely our biggest area of travel. So we went down the nomadic life. So we picked up some fairly large clients in Sydney and went, we're gonna go now, and we're gonna do the whole office remote thing over in Southeast Asia. And we did that maybe 6-month stints. Yeah. So 5 to 6 months every year. We used to do that before COVID.
So that was for PB web development?
Yeah, for that company. So because most of our clients were already, we don't see them all the time. We just speak to them on the phone. We just accelerated that process and went, we'll just do Skype videos or video conference calls. And then suddenly the rest of the world went into a pandemic and followed suit. Yeah. So it's we did a lot of traveling through the Philippines, where our team is. So we've got a bunch of Filipino developers over there. Then we try to hire in Vietnam as well. So hence we went to Vietnam and spent a good amount of time there. That didn't go as well as what we thought it would. But I think it's just a culture thing. Then we tried Thailand as well. So we spent a lot of time in Thailand. Maybe could have hired there as well, but by that time we had plenty of Filipino developers on our team, and then a lot of time in Singapore. So that's where we spend most of our time overseas. So I think after this whole COVID lockdown thing, we'll probably go up to Japan and just something new.
Yeah. Have you done much like personal travel to Europe or places like that?
Not myself. My partner has. The only place I've been to Europe is Frankfurt. That's just where our conference was. So, just spent a little bit of time in Frankfurt. And then a little bit of time in the States. Where was it? LAX.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, a little bit of time there. New York and Cancun, out of all the places.
Yeah. Cancun's fun. I did a large portion of Mexico. Unfortunately, you didn't see Mexico.
No, I know I didn't. It's just that.
The real Mexico is probably like a couple of hours just in any direction from Cancun, and you'll start to get to the cooler stuff.
Yeah.
That's Mexico's a fantastic place. I always recommend people to go there. It's
Next time.
Yeah, for sure. What about in just Cardano and maybe even just life challenges as well? Like anything that you've particularly happy that you've overcome, done any learnings from life that you're particularly proud of?
Going deep here.
Yeah.
I do not spend enough time looking back and reflecting. If I did, I'll probably remember, and I'll be able to highlight some of these like really big challenges that we've overcome. Business-wise, through PBWeb, probably landing those really big clients. like as your business grow, you grow, and a web agency, you start getting a lot of small clients. That's where you start, easy things that you can handle. And then you start growing the business and being able to take on larger clients, larger projects, hiring team members to actually fulfill that as well. So, I think looking back at the business, being able to tick off those goals and grow the team and deliver more exciting projects every single year, I think was a big achievement for us. And every year we keep on doing more exciting things. And that's why we're pivoting the business now over to blockchain services and building website integrations that doing like we mainly build WordPress sites, but integrating that with Cardano. So that's like the exciting edge that we're doing at the moment. But in that journey to get there, we've built some really amazing websites using different tech stacks and getting bigger and bigger along the way. So I think we grew the business from just the two of us to a team of 9 at a high point, and I think that's the point where the most stress I could handle in managing the business myself. I could have hired someone else, like someone in Sydney, for 120k and just got them to manage it all, but it wasn't for me. Yeah, we took off into the whole remote thing instead. Far more relaxed and easier to manage. But I think growing the business and going through those milestone points of being able to create bigger and better, more creative projects and better solutions for our clients, I think it was probably the best achievements in that part of the business.
For sure. Sounds like there's a parallel between that and almost like the Cardano, like your stake pool with ADAOZ, and you're growing and growing, and then you get like a big whale or someone coming in and jumping into it. And I think you had the same with the Project Catalyst. Like you got the grant from the Cardano Foundation for, how long was that for?
So it was a 10k USD for the project. We're literally just starting at the moment. Like I teamed up with a professor over in the States to do the AI and algorithm side of things to detect scams on the internet.
Yeah.
And then we're just building the front end interface to make that look sexy, because an algorithm in the back end just looking for scams isn't very sexy.
For sure.
Yeah. So we're making it usable in the front end so other people can tap into that data and go, okay, that's a scam website, that's a scam wallet address, I shouldn't be interacting with it. So we're just doing those kind of things. But yeah, you're right. Going through an ecosystem, learning different things, and then ticking off goals along the way, like we have been in the Cardano space, is pretty cool. It's little things. Like I'll look at it at the moment and think, oh yeah, big deal. But maybe in 2-3 years' time, I'll look back at it and people might be inspired that we managed to do those things.
Definitely. Are you a big reader at all? Do you read much books? No?
Don't read. No, I was afraid of that you might ask, because I know you read like a mammoth amount of books.
I'm a pretty big bibliophile.
Yeah, no, I consume all my. I'm a listener, so I learn from listening to other people. So podcasts is by far where I take in everything.
For sure.
So if I was to get into books, it would be audiobooks.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. What about podcasts? What are your favorite recommendations or?
Anything market related at the moment. So let me just pull them up. So besides the main ones that I listen to all the time, The Economist, I absolutely love The Economist at the moment. Enough to pay for a subscription,
Yeah.
So if they can make me pay for something, then that's definitely a go.
Is that English, that one?
Yeah, from the UK. Yeah. Primarily from the UK. Then The Journal is one that I'm listening to quite a lot. Snacks Daily, which is from Robin Hood. So they give like little snippets of information from what's happening in all sorts of different markets. So it's been really good to jump in on that and see what's going on. What else here? There's a couple of other Cardano podcasts like Cardano Source, Cardano podcasts in general. And then some of these ones down here. There's a lot of entertainment podcasts that I listen to as well, like Cautionary Tale. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Yeah. It's about those little things that you might learn from other people's mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah. Listen to a couple of them. They're quite entertaining.
Are they usually like ones with really bad outcomes? Like
yeah. Like walking in front of a train, that's always a bad thing.
Or coming out from behind a bus. Like so many videos of kids bloody doing that and cars coming. Yeah. scary.
It's kind of like tales that you hear from childhood fairy tales, like, why did they create Little Red Riding Hood? And they dive into the stories behind that and why those cautionary tales were created, and what learnings to get from them. So I found it quite interesting.
For sure.
Recode Daily, FinTech Insider, and InsurTech Insider if you are into the insurance space.
Yeah, okay, let's get
I know. I know. But it's the innovation in those spaces and listening and learning what people are doing in the UK and the EU, where the regulations are a lot more relaxed and fintech can really evolve. That's where you're seeing a lot of the innovations happen. So little ideas that happen over there have not reached Australia yet and probably won't for another 4 or 5 years. So getting ideas and inspirations from what's happening elsewhere in the world, especially in the UK, bridging it into something here is opportunities that you can take, because it's just not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, I think a good example of that was the PayWave. I think like they had that in the Netherlands or something ages before that we did over here.
Yeah,
I believe.
The adoption here though is quite fast because of just our 4 major banks. Like one major bank will introduce it and go, oh, scramble. That's all good. So adoption
there's just not that many people here, so if something catches on it, it doesn't take ages to get to the middle of Queensland. It's like there's no one there anyway. So last one was what gets you excited, man? What's coming up in the future?
What gets me excited? What gets me excited?
Could be something small, something big, something unrelated to crypto.
My God, I'm going on holiday next week.
Oh yeah, where are you heading off
to? Sunshine Coast.
Nice.
Yeah, I just don't spend any time going north. I always go south because you're on the Gold Coast. Go south over the border, you're in Byron, so it's quick and easy, just an hour drive. Never been up to the Sunshine Coast and spending a decent amount of time up that way, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's getting me excited. Besides that, the DeFi space in Cardano, so that whole crypto space is going to launch anytime soon. So I'm really looking forward to that in terms of the crypto space, and then just building the community here and meeting more people, actually getting out and hopefully out of these lockdowns and
for sure
more free travel. Little things I'm excited about.
Yeah, definitely. That's probably one of the highlights of my year, just being able to actually go out to some of these meetup things. I've been meaning. I think you said you listened to my goals one. I think back in the start of 2020, I set a goal of I'm going to start going out to meetup groups, and then
fantastic COVID.
Yeah, so it's nice to actually be going out, and hence I got to meet you out there, got to meet some other cool people in the Cardano space, and it's been a lot of fun. Been enjoyed jumping in and listening to your podcast, and
Oh, this is how you learn. You meet new people, you engage with what they're doing, and get exposure to a whole new, different industry or whatever it might be. So it's been great listening to yours as well.
Exactly. Pete, thanks so much for coming on. Where should people go if they want to interact with you or learn more? Where do you want to put people?
Twitter is probably where I'm most active. So Twitter... my handle is Astroboysoup.
Yeah, how'd that come about, by the way?
I don't know. Twitter just launched. I had to think of a handle. I had on my desk an Astroboy postcard, and he was eating soup. So Astroboysoup, that would do. You got to sign up there and now as quickly as possible. So that's what I got. Besides that, the website cardano.com.au, that's probably the best point of contact. The blog's there, all the information about Stakepool and everything that we produce in terms of the YouTube content, audio content for Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there.
Perfect. All right, I'll put that in the show notes and whatnot as well. And thanks so much for coming on, man.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.